And welcome everybody to PEMA TV. We are pre-recording this right now, so my lovely co-host and life partner and wife, basically the boss, she's not going to be able to join us tonight. Real quick, here at PEN we've had a whole bunch of new shows. Please go to either one of our Facebook pages. Check out the new shows. Have one starting tonight on PEN2 called Spiritual Sex. It's a great show. It's not what you think, but it kind of sort of is. So go check them out over there on PEN2. We also have Barefoot Paranormal. Once again, another high-quality paranormal show. If you would really like to see what it's like out there, please stick around and check us out. And, of course, always check out the PEN radio page. Right now we're at almost 35 shows total on the radio show, so on the radio side. So if you need any kind of paranormal entertainment or talk, metaphysical, please come join us. And as always, please go to our main sponsor, which is MetalunaBoutiqueandStones.com. That is my lovely wife's store here in Gladewater, Texas. We're also online. Any kind of high fashion or metaphysical needs, you can find it there. But enough of the business. Tonight we're going to be talking with an extremely. I'm giggly over this. I got to meet these guys. They probably don't remember me from San Antonio because they had kind of this special thing that happened down there. But I got to meet them for the first time in San Antonio. Tonight we are joined by Andy and Michelle Coppock. And how are you guys doing?
We're doing great.
Yeah, we're doing fantastic. And of course we remember you, for God's sake.
Absolutely remember you.
Well,
that was such a great trip.
Yeah, well, I've been told that when you're 6'3" and over 300 pounds, people tend to remember you. I've kind of noticed that.
Yeah, you don't blend.
No, I am the background. You know what I mean? But let me give our viewers just a little bit of an introduction with you guys. Andy, you're a physicist, an engineer. You're the CEO of Laminear Dynamics. Did I say that right?
Yep.
Both of you are documentary filmmakers. Michelle, you're also a freelance writer and a child and animal welfare advocate. And we'll get to you guys' website and then the rescues here in a minute. But how did you two guys meet? Because those are like polar opposites, or is that how it happened?
That's exactly how it happened. We met in a dusty, dirty, pitch black, dark attic in one of the most haunted areas or homes in California. Had never met each other, didn't really know anything about each other before, and we were both on an investigation of this manor. And found ourselves at one point in this attic doing a session, and we didn't know what the other looked like or anything about one another. And we were up in this area for quite a long time talking and getting to know each other. And the lights went on, and we went, "Wow, really?" And there's a great visual to go along with understanding and getting to know each other in the dark. It's kind of cool.
So if it was at the Wolf Manor, can we blame Scott Grunwald?
No.
Oh.
No. But we can blame him for some other things.
yeah. I can believe that was Scott.
It was just cool meeting him there.
What we try to ask this of all of our guests that are. You guys are so much more than paranormally related, but with our guests that are paranormally related here on PEMA TV, we try to ask, what was your spark? What got you started down this dark path that we walk with in the paranormal, so to speak? What was the spark for each one of you to get you interested and motivated in that?
You know, I personally, it was both very, very different experiences, but personally, I was always fascinated by it. And I belonged to a couple of teams here and there. And for the most part, I was incredibly, I wouldn't even say skeptic. I would go as far as to say cynical about whether all of this paranormal thing was true or in our minds, and I really struggled with that, with believing that most of it was just crap. I mean, to be honest with you, it was a big struggle for me. Not only paranormal things, but spiritual matters as well. As a young adult, I guess, not so much when I was a kid, but definitely as a young adult. And but I did get interested in paranormal things. I was fascinated by it, but more for a fun side of it than anything. And then I had not even kind of, a pretty horrific tragedy in our family. Our older son passed away. And going through the grief and whatnot through all of that turned me down a very, very different journey than I was on before. And my son, he was in college at the time. He was a math and physics genius, and we would have a lot of conversations about that topic in those months, years before he passed away. And at that point in my life, it became serious. It wasn't fun anymore. I wanted to know where my son was.
Right.
For a lot of personal reasons I won't get into, but he was leaving me clues. He was leaving me clues in math and science and physics. And a couple of very interesting things happened, and clues were dropped that actually led me to a quantum physicist and led me to the Wolf Manor in some interesting ways where I met him. And when I met him, that's when it really took a even more serious turn, because he was just at that point himself where it went from fun, I don't really believe in this sort of a thing, to wait a minute, something's there. So our paths sort of merged at the same time. But how you got there is different.
Yeah, very, very different. You referred to it as how did we get involved with this dark side of things. It's interesting because in studying physics, all of the mechanisms and all of the math made sense for a lot of things to exist that we can't see and don't understand because we don't have the technology to delve into those regions, but I knew they were there. Yet I would have been the first one to call bullshit and be on the other side of the fence arguing that none of this stuff was real. And it was funny, I had to check myself in that whole thing at a couple points to go, what was I talking about? Here I'm proving it mathematically, and then I'm arguing that somebody couldn't really have some kind of a personal experience. And this was all taking place, for quite a long time until I moved into this building, moved my company into this building, and I had some weird things happen. I had some strange stuff happen. Everybody's seen all the friggin' shows that are on TV, but and depending on which show, the story is semi-accurate or not. But some strange stuff happened, and it launched me into investigating them and figuring it out. And I found some really cool stuff. I found an opening into one of these worlds that led me into developing some of the technology that we didn't have so that we could see it. And not from a dark side,
right?
Really from a light side. It's just a light that we can't see as humans. But it's very light, and it's very bright, and there's some amazing energies and different, a whole huge world out there of things that we can harness and use today for problems that we have. And it's understanding deeper into our universe gives us more tools to deal with the things that we have now in a really beautiful way. And I don't consider it dark. Even when things are going weird. I'll tell you, I've had some weird stuff happen. I've had some stuff that people would look at and say it was violent. They would say that I was attacked. They would say that all of these things. I didn't consider that at all. I just considered I was being given a message or an explanation or something for a question that I had, and I was getting an answer in a profound way. But each one of those things that happened gave me a new understanding of this potential energies that are out there that we can harness. And it's really been a fascinating journey. But I don't consider it paranormal. I don't consider it weird or metaphysical or any of these other terms. But you have to put a term behind it. But my term is just, it's physics, it's science. It's just a new chapter that we didn't understand before, but was always there.
Right, and I don't want anybody to get confused that when they, you know, as they watch the show, I wasn't referring to like a dark meaning evil. I meant dark like you got to have flashlights.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I didn't want anybody to think that.
You know, I always throw that out there that just because you're in the dark doesn't mean that you're in the dark. It just means that you can't see its light.
There's just not many photons around you. That's all that means.
That's right. That's right.
This is also another kind of question for both you guys, and also kind of a standard issue question for us here, because we've gotten some very varied answers to this question. What do you think we are investigating? Can you describe what you think we are researching, investigating? Because I know you guys are a lot like me and Kim and several other couples that we know that are paranormal researchers. We're kind of past the I don't know if it's out there or not. We're at the point where it's how, what, when, why. Can we make it repeat? We're asking the harder questions now.
Right. Yeah, we know those answers, right?
Right.
We are beyond that. So now for us, it's okay. How is it possible? What's happened? What's happening? Where? What are these things made of? What kind of energy are we looking at? Absolutely involved in that kind of a thing now. I love understanding and realizing that energy cannot be destroyed. It just can take another form, and figuring that out and that puzzle is pretty exciting.
When we experience something on an investigation, when we capture something with a piece of equipment, the problem that I always had is it wasn't a repeatable thing. It happened once in a while. And it didn't seem as though what I was seeing had the same energy as the physical manifestations that were taking place, or the stories that were happening, and that sort of pointed me in a direction. Well, maybe we're really not seeing the actual thing. We're seeing a ripple in the water. If a truck drives by you on the road and you feel the wind, the wind is sort of what we're seeing in these investigations, what's making our equipment twitch one way or another. It's a second or third or fourth generation manifestation of the energy. And the reason is we don't know what the hell the energy is to begin with. It's something, if it was something that we understood, we'd already understand it. And if it was something that the equipment that we have directly would pick it up, we would have been measuring it for years.
And we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Right. So what we're talking about is actually something that breaches our understanding of the the conventional physics model. Potentially another fundamental form of energy. And just recently, I think we may have figured out, at least to one degree, what one form of that is, which leads us to the reason that we're sitting sometimes underground in the middle of the Mojave Desert in a gold mine.
Which is where we're at right now.
Right now. But
his life wasn't weird enough, right?
But I think I did find a potential source of an energy that is strong enough that we never really understood before, and how it manifests and whatnot. And that may give us more of an explanation. True answer, nobody knows, and it is something that we can't directly detect. And the equipment that we're using is wrong. Even though it picks something up, it's wrong because it's not directly picking that up. We're not getting hit by the truck. We're just feeling the wind, or we're hearing the sound of it pass by. But we're definitely not seeing the truck as it were.
It's almost like we're in the situation with most of the equipment that's out there now. You're reactive. You can't predict anything with it. You're just simply reacting to environmental after effects of the event.
Absolutely.
I would totally agree.
Key to build part of it too, if I could touch on that just real quick.
Sure.
people shouldn't get discouraged when they get something and then nobody else gets it. And they shouldn't get discouraged when they go back to a location that's supposed to be haunted and they had an amazing experience and it doesn't happen again. And my analogy to that is you're out at the beach, you're standing on the cliff, sort of like where we live, and you look down and you see a pod of dolphins swim by. And they're gorgeous, right? So you run back and you grab your friends and you go, come out and take a look at these dolphins. And they aren't there anymore. They swam away, right? Are there dolphins in the ocean? Absolutely. Are there dolphins where you can predict them just because you had an occurrence at one point? Probably not. Now, sat there long enough, you might see them again. But, you know, these investigations, since we can't see into this world, we never know where or what is going to happen. So you shouldn't be discouraged from just not being able to repeat these things. You can't directly apply scientific method to this type of investigation yet. This is still discovery. This isn't science.
Right. Yeah, and something else. I mean, that also applies. The whole repeatability thing is just, I think, a good habit that people need to try to do. If you're going to do an experiment, don't just do it at one time at one location. Try to do it at multiple locations and record the different results that you get. That's just simple science. And
right.
a lot of people, unfortunately, they kind of follow the cues that they see on television, which sometimes is good, most of the time maybe not so much. Just for how can I say this? Just for techniques and processes. Okay, not always the greatest examples. So people just need, like, I totally agree with what you said. People need to be able to try to do the same thing over and over. Try different things, but try a simple experiment at multiple locations and see what happens. If you're on more cliffs, you have more chances of seeing more dolphins.
Right, and you know, even with conventional science, with let's say biomedical studies, if I develop a device and we test that device, my number of samples on each specific test could be in the thousands per given thing to establish a data set to describe how something works or how something behaves. It's never characterized from one event, an N of 1 or an N of 2 or whatever. It doesn't even become interesting until I have several hundred points of data to go back on, and I would never even attempt at presenting anything in that arena until I had several thousand bits of data on it. So yeah, exactly. These things needed to be, you know, repeated and repeated and repeated, and you know, then you might have an understanding of what's going on. You can even pick up cyclic things too, where you just go at one point in the day or one point at night, and you pick something up. Well, what else was going on around you? What was the phase? What was the lunar cycle? What was the magnetic storm from the sun doing at that point? What was all of the other things that go around? And then pick a similar night where the same things are supposed to happen and see if you get the same event.
One of my favorite analogies that you give when we're talking about investigating too is the call to the ATM. You know, we take our equipment out because we have someone call that says, hey, you know what, this happens every night and I'm scared or whatever else, and now we're going to go in and we're going to investigate it, right? And as investigators, we have equipment, we have things that we bring with us. Well, the people, when they have that experience, they didn't have that equipment, right? And we don't realize, I think, sometimes how what we bring, our equipment, our technology, instantly changes the environment. And that's another thing that we try really hard to do. We try to walk into a situation and investigate as stealth as possible, because we do understand that the energy we bring changes the energy that's there. And so I think sometimes people walk in and do an investigation thinking that they're going to try to capture what's been described as happening there. Nothing happens. Like, it's in your imagination, it's not haunted. Or something does happen that's a little strange, different maybe than what the people experience. But we've added energy to the situation itself. Again, and it's different than what it is. Right. Your cop analogy, explain that.
Well, and that's you know, that goes back. All of what we were just talking about also goes back to the fact that you have to be willing to do work in this field, and that runs off a huge portion of people just from the get go. And they figure out that if you really, really want to know what's going on, this takes some blood, sweat, and tears and sacrifice to make
Sure.
discoveries. And I think people need to understand that once again, not that I bag on the TV shows all the time, but you're not going to solve an investigation or helping a client type investigation. That's not going to happen in an hour.
No, and I think honestly, those shows, it's easy for us to bag on the shows because it's just like if you work in the medical field, you're a doctor, you're a nurse, whatever else, and you're watching, Grey's Anatomy or whatever else,
Right,
you're going to sit
right.
there and back on it all day long because you're going to go,
Right.
that wouldn't happen, they couldn't do that, or you're a cop and you're watching CSI, you're going to go, there's no way you can get those results in 20 minutes, right?
Right.
And that's what we do, but at the same time, there is a place for those shows, and for me,
Sure.
the biggest place for that is knowing that what they have done is opened the door for conversation. These are topics that have been so taboo for so long, we've never been able to talk about them without being labeled crazy. And so they have opened that door and enabled conversation. They've enabled it to become much more normal, people to be much more comfortable with it. And so that is the beauty of what the shows are. But if we're going
Yes.
to take them and recreate our own lives as investigators around them, then that's a mistake, just like you wouldn't learn how to do surgery watching
Right.
VR.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely shouldn't be emulating what's there and expecting results. So,
Right. Well, that's the point I wanted to make. That they did make them water cooler talk. It has made the paranormal water cooler talk. Kim
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect example. Kim and I have been at conventions before. In fact, we were the only paranormal, quote unquote, related booth at a tattoo and horror convention in Nashville. And
Right.
there were literally people that lined up at one point in time just to talk to us about ghost stories, basically.
Yep.
And it
Because
was
they had an opportunity to talk, and how cool is that? Nobody gets
Right.
that, right?
right. And I will say that it's just the procedures, some of the provoking that gets done, some of that stuff. I know it's for entertainment. I know it's for shock value. But I also know that there's a huge list of people that are not going to think a whole lot about it, and they're going to do some dangerous stuff. And I just don't want to see anybody get hurt. That's my only gig with all that.
You get hurt in several different ways.
Yeah.
And I think the worst, absolutely the worst thing is the stuff that we do to ourselves. You become what you act like, and you start acting like an asshole, you're going to be an asshole.
There you go.
Oh, you wouldn't. One of the big things that we talk to people about a lot is respect. You walk into a situation and you realize that you're not having a conversation with an object. You're having a conversation with potentially a human being, and you wouldn't walk into any situation unless you are an asshole.
Right.
And behave like that when you want to get information from someone. You want to actually have a conversation and learn something from them. There's a great deal of respect that needs to go into it. And I think that a lot of times we have seen on TV or in our own situations, we've walked in and we're not getting anything, right? We're not getting the answers that we want. We're not getting the hits on the equipment or whatever else. And so now we're going to turn to this provoking thing, because obviously they're not answering us. When really the truth is more likely they're answering us. We're not hearing it, and we're not seeing it because we're using the wrong equipment, right? We're not at that level of understanding what exactly it is we need to use to measure things. So they're probably answering us, but we don't realize it because we don't have the ability to see it. Now we're a bigger asshole, right?
Right. I've recently learned some of the most valuable lessons about how to investigate from my horse. And it might sound funny, but if you think about it, the animals that are around us and all of the critters that crawl around, we don't speak their language, yet they have one. And we can see them; they're there, they're a thing. And you teach your dog tricks in one thing or another to sit and whatnot, and we assess how smart they are if they can perform our tricks. But they're a lot smarter than that, and they're a lot deeper than that. When you come home and you're in a bad mood, or you're had a bad day, or you're sad or upset about something, your dog knows about it the second the door opens, sometimes before the door opens. They'll come over and they'll put their head on your lap, and yet we're assessing their intelligence by whether they'll obey our commands. It's this human arrogance thing of us thinking that we're above everything else. And my horse My horse is interesting. He's what was the term we used a little bit ago?
Asshole?
Yeah. My horse is an asshole. But
no, he's just...
He's interesting. He's really strong. He's really big, and he's kind of a teenager. And he plays rough and one thing and another. And if I walk into the ring and I start ordering him around, if I start provoking him, you get over here. You show him. Move this way. Get back. I don't know. And I'm yelling at him and I'm provoking him. Well, I'm going to get what I asked for. He's probably going to punt me across the ring. If I go in there with respect and I allow him to understand that I'm there to play with him or to take care of him one thing or another, oh, he'll follow me around and do anything that I want him to do. At the point when he understands that we're doing this as a partnership, as a team. I'm just yelling at him and ordering him around, well, it's not going to work. Now, you go into an paranormal investigation the same kind of way. If you go in there with an agreement that you're there to experience something, experience a gift that they have to give, and your intent is to learn from them, and you know, maybe learn a little bit about your world, you're probably going to get that. You know, you go in and same kind of a thing, and they're acting inappropriately, well, you might get an inappropriate response.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think these are just damaging things, damaging traits to develop across the board, because you shouldn't be treating your kids, your wife, or your dog, or your horse, or whatever in those manners. So why would you treat anything else like that? You know, and at the point when I made that shift, and I walk into places, well, yeah, I get incredible things happening around all the time. I get amazing things, not just in the paranormal world, but even in the animal world. I got a critter problem half the time. These things are following me around and whatnot, but it's that intent that you put out. It's that thing that you're not looking at them as a subservient creature. You're looking at them, you know, potentially as a partner or an equal. And hey, you're different, but what can you teach me about your world? How did you know that I was in a bad mood when I came home? What, you know? And all of a sudden you realize that everything around you is just as amazing as you know, potentially what we're looking at in the paranormal world. So all of that, all together, has been a really life-changing thing for myself on how I conduct, you know, my conduct around anybody or anything anymore.
Yeah,
it's been a big change.
You know, and I have to say this. When I went to you guys' presentation, you know, if you've been around the quote unquote convention circuit for any length of time, sometimes when it comes to presentations, you can get a little jaded. You kind of go in with some preconceived notions of what the content's going to be, no matter what the title says on the little billboard out front. You can get kind of jaded with it, and you kind of think you already know what's going to be talked about. But I'm here to tell you right now, when I went to you guys' presentation, I walked out of there with a whole totally different perspective on what was going on and what I was doing as far as being in the paranormal. And I want to thank you guys for that, because that kind of aha moment doesn't happen for me very often, and I want to thank you guys for that. And please, if you would, the main thing that I took away from you guys' presentation was the power of intention. And I was wondering if you guys could talk about that a little bit, because a lot of people, we can talk about being respectful doing an EVP session, we can talk about being disrespectful of an environment when you're there, but when you start talking about the power of intention, that affects every aspect of your life, no matter whether you care about it or not. It affects every aspect of your life.
That's a big question that all of us should ask ourselves at every moment in our lives. From the time that we wake up until the time that we go to sleep, whether we're walking into an investigation or we're walking into lunch with a friend, or whatever it is that we're doing in our life. What's our intention? We get this big question, and always, you know, there's those top 3 questions you always get. And one of those questions is, how do you protect yourself? What's your thing that you go through to protect yourself? You know, whether it's prayers or one thing or another, and everybody's got their ritual that they do. And I really believe that behind that ritual, it's not exactly what it is. Because what everyone does is very, very different. What's behind the power of that is you know, as far as that goes as well. So that's even a big component of those kinds of Ouija boards. Are they evil or are they helpful? Well, you know what? What's your intention?
Right.
What is it that you want? And what is in your heart? What is in your resonance and your being before you start any kind of
You know, first, thank you for what you just said, because that really means a lot to us that you were able to glean that from the presentation you gave. That was our intent, was not to do the typical paranormal thing. Mm-hmm. We really had something to say at this point. We were really wondering if anyone was going to like what we had to say, and we were really curious, especially since we were talking about, you know, quite a bit of animal mm-hmm. interactions and intelligence things, and we wondered how that was going to be received in the middle of Texas. And to our surprise and delight, it was received really well. I mean, that's awesome that you said that. But the intent side of it, again, I think that came around to me from another animal interaction at the barn with the horses, but it wasn't with the horses. This raven started showing up and watching us take care of the horses and watching us do stuff. And raven is a really big bird, and I didn't know anything about him. In fact, I didn't know the difference between a crow and a raven prior to this. A raven is just a larger version of a crow, same basic family, but they're really smart. But it was kind of cool. This big bird was hanging out watching us, and he started bringing gifts. He started bringing things, and he would fly down and flip me things. Started out, first thing was a little piece of meat, and he flipped it to me, and just sat there and looked at me, and I was trying to figure out what he was doing, and then he hopped over to the catfish, and he was looking at the cat dish. He's like, well, I'll give you a piece of meat if you give me some of that cat food, because I really like the cat food better than the meat. So I thought, all right, so I started giving him some cat food, and then he started bringing me other things, little trinkets, little medals, little medallions, anything shiny that he'd pick up and he'd find, and we got into this little barter system with this raven, and it was awesome, because he's wild, he's not our captive pet, but he's hanging out, and he's just dealing with us like we're part of his family. And he had a wife. They mate for life, kind of a thing. We named him Sam Crow.
Because at the time we thought he was a crow.
We thought he was a crow, but he was a raven. But
and we're Sons of Anarchy fans.
Yeah.
Sam Crow sounded appropriate.
Sam Crow was the deal. So his wife was Gemma, and one day Gemma, I went to the barn in the morning to feed the horses.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Before I get too far, they would their husband and wife, they mate for life, and they would do these rituals and things, and they would stand there and they'd do this dance. I've got it on a video on my Facebook page, I think, someplace on there. But they'd look at each other, they'd look away, and they'd bob their heads up and down and hop up and down and look at each other and do this rhythmic kind of a dance that was really cool. And when I would bring little gifts and treats and stuff for Sam, he would grab them and fly up and give them to Gemma as a present, and she'd get all excited and fly back to their nest where they hung out. And it's really cool. And I showed up one day, and she had been run over in the street out in front of the barn, and all of the ravens in the area, they were all circling around, and like Sam was just sitting there staring at her. So I took her and picked her up out of the street and took her back. And it was just horrible, because you could just feel that he was destroyed. You know, basically his wife is crushed out in the street. I took her back. I didn't know what to do, so I buried her next to the stable. And for the next couple of days, when I'd show up in the morning, he was standing on her grave, and he would do that dance up on top of her grave. And at that point, it was like, oh my God, he really understands. He's in pain. This guy, he hurts just like we would hurt. And he's mourning just the same way that we would mourn someone passing like that. And, it's horrible. And so I'd sit there next to him, and he'd hop over and he'd look at me, and he'd make these sounds, these really low, squawky sounds. So I'd do it, what you would do. I'd make the same sound back, like I was talking to him, and I'd go, wah, wah, wah. Well, as soon as I'd make a sound like that, he'd just get mad and he'd fly away. He'd just get pissed off, and off he goes. Next day, same thing. He'd sit down, and and I'd mimic his sounds, and he'd fly away. He got all mad. So the third day, I went there, and he's sitting next to me, and he starts to make a sound, and I look down at the grave, and I could just feel that he was hurting. So I started talking to him like I talk to anybody else. And as soon as I did that, he moved over closer to me. He's leaning his wing on me. He's putting his head on me. He's sitting there talking back. And I realized at that point that when I'm squawking at him, there's nothing behind the sound that I'm making. I'm just trying to emulate something. There wasn't any intent whatsoever. And it was unbelievably disrespectful. I mean, it's like if you heard a person speaking in another language and you just went up and went, nah, 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 nah. Right? They're going to get pissed off and they're going to leave. It's not going to be, there's nothing behind it. But when he felt that I was truly saying something, he felt the intent. He felt the meaning behind the words, even if he didn't understand the words. He could tell that I was genuine. And then he bonded with me at that point. And the difference was intent. The difference was I didn't fake it. I didn't come in with something. I was upset too. I mean, I had to bury her and watch this whole thing, and it was just god awful. But that part of it, as soon as I let him know that I felt that too, then he understood that, and it was okay. Now, again, the intent with a paranormal investigation, when you're going in there, you have just a set bunch of questions that you fire out like you're talking to the wall, or are you really talking to somebody? Is there true intent behind your question? Do you really want to know that answer? Or are you just trying to get a voice on your recorder so that you can put it online and everybody can hear it? Right? It's intent behind everything that you do is probably the most important aspect of everything that we do.
Also, too, remembering back and going back to the fact, looking at this raven, we very well could look at these animals, these birds, and just think of them as inanimate objects. They don't have emotion. They don't have intelligence. They're not human, right? So we could, oh, that's cute, and boom that off. But that's not the case. This raven knew that his wife was gone and buried. He was dancing on her grave. He was also bringing her gifts.
That's right.
And that kind of thing, too. And having some respect in that to allow yourself to have some good intentions and conversations created a relationship, and we create these relationships with whomever it is that we're talking to in a given situation as well. It's just because we can't see them doesn't mean that they're not emotional. We remember that when we walk into situations as well. Not to do that typical arrogant human thing, I'm better than you. I do have a body in order.
Yeah, I think knocking yourself off at the top of the food chain with the way that we treat everything around us is really important too. I mean, does it make me any lesser a person? Does it make me any lesser a man to consider a raven or my horse or something else as an equal but different? Hell no. If anything, it makes me feel more in touch with what's around me, and realizing the strengths in some of these things that we consider lesser, including ourselves, including how we treat other people. We treat other people that look different, sound different, whether they have physical differences or mental differences, why can't we just consider them different?
Cultural differences.
Or cultural differences. I mean, God, we just have to draw a friggin' line every time we turn around. And, if you stop doing that and you look around, it's amazing how everything else starts to treat you better.
Well, and if you go back to physics and the science of it all as well, it's an undeniable fact that we are all connected on a subatomic level. Mm-hmm. And there isn't a line there. It's not, we're all connected if we're humans, right? We're all connected if we're American. We're all connected if we're this, if we're that. We are, on a subatomic level, connected to every single thing on our planet, in our universe. We're connected through chemically, to the stars and to the universe. We're connected energetically to everything.
Yeah, if you consider the subatomic particles that make up every single thing around us, the table in front of you, the tree growing outside, and your wife. If you consider all of those subatomic particles little Legos, everything's built out of the same Lego set. Mm-hmm. They're just assembled, but we're all the same stuff.
We're in a net of sports. So I'm just like walking into an investigation. We can't see the ghosts in front of us. We can't see those that little network that connects all of us together.
Well, and something else too. We share half our DNA with a banana.
That's exactly right.
Correct.
And just so you guys know, I've been showing one thing that I remember distinctly, and I've been showing the graphics behind this with Sam Crow. One of the things that he brought you, Andy, if I remember correctly, was a St. Christopher's medal.
Right.
Yeah, there's a St. Michael's medal,
St.
Benedict's medal, and a St. Francis medal.
Which is really interesting. The first one was it Francis or Benedict?
Benedict.
With the whose sort of
spirit
guide of sorts was a crow, and so there's a crow on that medal, which was really intriguing.
Yeah, he would pick these things up, and I'll tell you what, I wear them.
I don't blame you.
Raven brings you a St. Francis or a St. Benedict's medal or something like that.
Put that on your body.
Put it on.
Yeah. That's a very subtle sign from the universe to do something right there, I think.
Subtle or shocking, either or.
Now,
absolutely.
Talking about specifically about Sam Crow, and thank you so much for sharing that story, because that is just that moved me a lot at the presentation. But like right now, I'm showing a graphic. You guys actually had some. You guys run a horse rescue rehabilitation center.
That's right.
Boldly Go Rescue, and it's boldlygorescue.com? Or is it?
Yes, it is.
Okay. But I'm showing a picture of the monks that showed up to bless what you do. And how cool was that?
Oh my gosh, that was the most amazing thing. Those guys have, they tour the country, right? And they build these mandalas and do these incredible ceremonies, which really emphasize the beauty of life and how quickly everything changes. Because at the end of building these very intricate pieces of sand art, they spend a week putting together, they sweep it away. And that's exactly what happens in life. Nothing stays the same. Everything changes. Changes form, and it goes away, it becomes something else, or it's gone. And it's a really beautiful thing that they do, and they also bring awareness to their own situation with Tibet and whatever else. So they're an incredible group of men, and we had an opportunity to ask them to come to the sanctuary before they got on the plane and went back, to come by and bless our guys. They all have something interesting that makes them expendable, thrown away, one thing or another, and they come to us because we're not going to throw them away. We're going to try to figure out whatever it is that they need, and it was amazing. It was actually Christmas Eve last year, and it was pouring rain and freezing, and they were troopers. We were trying to figure out how we were going to get them up to the sanctuary, actually, and somehow made it up there with them, and it was probably one of the most amazing experiences of our lives. They chant, and when they chant, their voices are incredibly deep and low and resonant. You can feel it in your own chest when you're close to them, and the horses responded to it immediately. It wasn't close to them. It was pretty incredible.
We had one horse that was really sick at that point, and that was one of the reasons that, we thought, man, it'd be cool if they would come out. And as soon as they heard that we had a sick horse, they just, all they wanted were directions on how to get there, because they knew they could help. And
right.
It was funny. I mean, he was undergoing some treatment that we were giving him, and he was, but boy, was he sick. And I swear, the next couple months after they left, he responded and came back so quickly. It was just amazing. It was just absolutely amazing.
Funny, Jamie. We were and still are pretty deeply involved in communication type research, and it's not just how we talk to each other, but it's how cells communicate with other cells, how animals and humans communicate with each other. Again, back to how we communicate on a subatomic level, but we study resonance, and it's interesting. One of the little side shoots that we got involved in was checking out are we good? Are we in trouble? We're not going to get arrested.
Just had to communicate with a cop.
We're not going to be arrested, right? Anyway, we're studying resonance, and we got involved in an interesting guy that does drumming circles, and he's noticed that animals and autistic children, dolphins, would respond to his drumming, and it kind of goes along with some of the autistic communication research that we've gone down that road in conjunction with the paranormal technology. Some of the technology we use, we've noticed also opened the door to communication with autistic children. And so that's just a component of it as well. But to watch the horses respond to the monks chanting in the same way they would respond to the drumming.
Right.
And in the same way they respond to non-verbal communication that we have with them. And there is a big key in all of that, and that key of them is in resonance.
And it's one of those things that whether it be a drum or the monks chanting or my speaking to a raven in English, the drum carries the intent through sound.
Right.
The sound of the monk's voice and the feel of that vibration carries their intent into what hears it, and that's the vehicle, but it's the intent behind it. Because somebody can just bang on a drum, and somebody can just emulate the sound that sounds like a didgeridoo from coming out of these monks. It's not the same thing. It's not, because they truly believe what they're chanting about. And the Buddy Helm, the guy drumming, he truly believes. He's throwing all of his feeling into that sound that comes out of that drum, and you feel it. I can't do the same thing that he does, and you just feel that get projected out into the world, and things respond to it. In inverse of that, the things that we hear may just be a vehicle of something of another intent. Something that we can't see, something that we can't understand. Just because we pick up something that sounds like a growl, or we pick up something that sounds like one thing or another on the equipment that we have, maybe that's the vehicle that we're listening to it in the wrong technology. It's carrying the intent of something that really could be beautiful.
Just like nature makes a face out of something. Our ears do the same kind of a thing. Oh, yeah. That's what we hear, and it's the closest thing that we have to understanding what that sound might be, but there may be other explanations for that sound.
Well,
going back to the monks just for a second, Michelle touched on it, that these guys, they're living in exile based on their country, where they come from, having this huge evolution of genocide. If they stayed in their country, they were going to be killed because they were different. And so they were forced to leave, forced to go live someplace else. And the way that they reacted to that, the way that they reacted to the genocide, the way that they reacted to the violence and all of that, is to dedicate the rest of their life touring all over the world, delivering nothing but a message of how beautiful things could be, without a mention of anything else other than that. And that's the true intent that they have. And you know, they didn't react, well, they did this, so we're going to get them back. They did this, so we're gonna be a bigger asshole. We're gonna, you know, one thing or another. No, they turned it around, and it's like, this isn't how it should be, and we really need to teach everyone how it can be. And you know, being around those people, oh my God, and watching them around the animals, it was just one of the most amazing things that's ever happened. Yeah. Which that also tempered. That had something to do with my reaction to something that happened just recently. There was someone that, for some reason, didn't necessarily get along with me, and always had a different opinion in kind of a nasty way in the paranormal world. And the way that I dealt with it in the past was I just ignored it. I just, whatever, just let it go, let it be, whatever. Until finally I started thinking about the monks, and recently, just before San Antonio, I thought, you know what, this is a bunch of crap. He's acting inappropriately, so what do? I should do the inverse, you know. And I threw it out, and I invited him to come with us. I invited him to stand up on stage and speak with us if he wanted to. I invited him, threw it out there, and I meant it. I didn't, you know, it was like, it's time for this crap to end, this silly, stupid crap to end. And, you know, whether it did or not, I feel like it did, because I just turned it around, and it felt so much better than being angry at somebody that I don't even know for a reason that doesn't even make sense. You know, it was so much better to demonstrate something that was correct. So yeah.
And guys, actually, believe it or not, we're running out of time. We're already going to be pushing an hour here in just a few minutes. I'm not even gonna ask any of the questions I had about the importance of frequency and the Schumann resonances, and I mean, we could
do it again.
Yeah, we can definitely do this again. I want to give you guys a chance. I know I've been putting up your websites, iboldlygo.com and boldlyheal.com, and if they need to email you, it's at discover@iboldlygo.com. Correct?
Yes, it is. Yes. Discover it, and be careful about misspelling boldly, because you know that trips people up sometimes. There's two L's in there.
If you put I bodily go, it takes you someplace really bad.
Totally different. Totally different.
Jen, Michelle, I've also been
there's more media, and there's some video type things up there, and yeah, absolutely. If anybody has questions, shoot us an email.
And I've also been showing your Zen Archery banner too. So if people are local and they want to contact you, they can contact you there too.
Absolutely, that's fun, and that's one of those things. We get a lot of people that come and visit us too, and they'll say, "Man, I wish we had a day in your life." And the company that I have, earthwatersoul, that allows me to give you a day of adventure in our life, and I call it outdoor adventure and inner journey, because it's not just going out and for example, doing archery and shooting a target. It's much deeper than that. There's meditation and focus and really cool lessons within that. So thank you very much.
And you're not going to go all Hunger Games anytime soon, are you?
Oh, no, sir. No. It's all fun.
Well, I know you guys are pulled over and road tripping right now, and I want to let you guys go. I want to thank you both so much for coming on. Everybody be sure and check out PEN2 and check out the Pen Radio page. And if you're doing like the Coppocks are this weekend and you're investigating, be careful out there. And
Thank you so much.
And we'll see you guys next week.